Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay and founder of Law Firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to Lawyer Business Advantage, Gary Johnson, president and owner of J2 Marketing Consultants. Gary, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thank you again for allowing me on.
It's great to see you.
It's always a pleasure being with you.
Again, I think we haven't chatted in like a week, so this is good.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking today about business development. And, one thing, you and I have talked a lot about business development. You have coached so many attorneys in this area. I've coached a few as well. And what has always intrigued me is when attorneys are trying to learn how to do business development, they oftentimes talk with other attorneys who have been very, very successful. And the idea is that, well, this rainmaker, all you have to do is just do what the rainmaker does, and you're going to build your book of business just like the rainmaker did. But that's not actually what happens. Sometimes it does, but more often than not, the attorney finds that what worked for the rainmaker doesn't work for them. And they end up getting frustrated. They end up getting, obviously disappointed. They put in a lot of work for little effort. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that's a situation you've probably seen before. When you're talking to attorneys like that, what do you think's going on there?
Well, I mean, I think it's very natural to do that because we look at people that we respect and we see their successes, and so we go, "Ooh, I want to do that." And what we don't understand is their strengths, the rainmaker strengths, might not be our strengths. So, for instance, I have a lot of clients who come to me and say, "Look, I've tried to do this whole networking thing, but I'm really challenged by it, and I don't understand because I'm doing what the managing partner told me to do when I became a partner." And I haven't been able to get any business at all. And when I really start diving into them and looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be networking. Like, you might be socially awkward, right? Or you make people uncomfortable or whatever, and it's not their strength. And yet they still do it because they see the rainmakers in their firm doing it all of the time. And they think, okay, this is the way to do it. The good and bad part about business development and marketing is that there's not one size that fits all. So some people may get a lot of business from networking. Some people may get a lot of business from social media. Some people get a lot of business from speaking, from writing. There's lots of different things that you can do. And what, as coaches, and I know you do this as well, is we're trying to find out what is their strengths and then really put some strategies and tools and techniques that are going to be able to push that up a lot so that they are able to get better results in a faster amount of time. But yeah, they get frustrated. I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, you see somebody else doing it, and you're like, I'm twice the attorney as this person. I'm smarter than this person. Why isn't it working for me? And it's working for this village idiot. So it is a frustrating thing. But that's also why we're so passionate about coaching, is because we see things differently and we see it from a third party and can, like, at a high level, to look at the landscape and really help them understand what are they getting themselves through and how can they be more successful in the activities that they're doing, and giving them a bit of a different perspective. Having seen so many people, I mean, you and I have worked with hundreds of attorneys. We've seen it all, right? We've seen the obnoxious, extroverted individuals like me. And then you also see the kind individuals who are what I call ambiverts like yourself. And
shy, antisocial. Yeah. But it's a great example though, because you are very extroverted. You're a ton of fun. People enjoy being around you, and you get a lot of success through networking. I, on the other hand, am really quiet and reserved, and obviously I'm doing this podcast, but generally speaking, I'm not going to be the one who's at the party. Yet we're both very successful networking. we've both built our books of business on provisors by building relationships. Um,
Yep.
what do you attribute that to?
I attribute that to being very strategic, because like I've seen you in action, and you are doing certain things while you're networking, and it's not just during the networking event or during a coffee or a lunch. You're also doing the stuff that's before and the stuff that is afterwards, like the follow up, the continuing with the relationship with them. That's called being strategic with it, as opposed to the networking strategy that most people do, which is show up and throw up. They show up, they verbally vomit all over everybody, and they go, I don't get any business. I don't know why. So I think that unless the person is really socially awkward, networking can work for them. Whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, it doesn't make a difference. In fact, introverts are typically the best networkers. They usually are. And I shouldn't even say usually. I mean, like I would probably say 80% of the time, they're much better at networking than extroverts,
How is that
and
possible?
outgoing people. Because in networking, you want to listen, you want to be an active listener. And obnoxious individuals that are extroverted are typically not that. And they're just, that's why I'm saying is they verbally vomit all over everybody. And what the introverted or shyer people, they will listen to people. And if they are an active listener, they can be extremely successful. And I say active listening because active listening is different than regular listening. Regular listening allows somebody to just drone on and on and on and on, and they don't, you're not controlling the conversation. But an active listener is controlling the conversation the entire way, and they're listening to the stuff that somebody says, and they are also reacting to it as well appropriately.
We could talk about this for a long time, and we might actually do that.
Yeah.
Um, but
We can go wherever you want to go.
but one of the things that I thought is interesting, because you're right, we work with so many attorneys, and we can kind of start to see some trends and some patterns. And as you know, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Oh, I can't see my mug. There we go. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and Star Wars is built on archetypes. It's built on stuff from Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, and it's built on archetypes that occur through all stories throughout history. And you can kind of come up with some archetypes for business development for attorneys. Like there's some attorneys that are like this, other attorneys that are like that, other attorneys that are like that. And you described one right now, which is the introverted, um, kind of shy person. What are some other archetypes that you've encountered?
Well, some of the other ones are highly intellectual individuals.
Mm.
That this is going to come across as really badly. So, but highly intellectual that have very low self esteem. And you can usually tell these individuals because they are constantly trying to one up everybody else. And they're trying to prove how smart they are. And because they've always relied upon their intelligence. And so what they're doing is they're just constantly one upping. Oh, Alay, oh, I got a better story than that. And it's just the one up, the one up, the one up. So no matter what anybody else says, they have to one up them. And
Wow.
what they're doing is they're actually not connecting with people. They're repelling people, but they think, oh, I'm going to be so smart. Also, when they're not talking to other attorneys and they're using jargon, they lose people. They confuse people. People go, all right, yeah, guy's smart, but I just don't connect with him, and they move on, right? And so those are some that is I find that a lot within attorneys. But then you also have those other ones that are um, attorneys who oh god, I'm trying to
Oh,
think
no
of
problem. I
the
actually want to go back to this
yeah.
archetype that you're talking about, the very smart attorney who, likes to show how smart they are to people, and are just constantly one-upping other people. How does an attorney recognize that, oh yeah, that's actually me, And that's step one, you have to recognize you have that style. And then step two, what changes do they have to make, or what business development tactics work well for that type of an attorney?
So that's a very long answer, but to make it nice and short is to identify it, they need some very close confidants that will be able to tell them the truth, that have been at these events or have seen them in person doing these different things. That's one of the things that our clients, and I know your clients say this as well, is we love that you can tell us the truth. Because it's our job to put the mirror in front of them and say, yeah, this is reality. This is really reality. But then what can they do about this? One of the things that works extremely well is helping them understand that curiosity will win the day. And so if you're really curious, you'll ask more questions. You won't make it about you. You'll make it about everybody else. And when they do this several times, it's not just one time, they go to an event, they're curious, they ask people, and they're like, I'm cured. I'm cured. I'm no longer this individual. It doesn't happen that way. But when they do it again and again and again, what happens is they find the power of this, that all of a sudden their insecurities start to just go away because it's not about them. They're only thinking about somebody else. They have the right mindset going in as to how can I make this other person successful? How can I learn more about them to really understand their needs and their wants so that I can help them out? And then how can I just be about them, about giving to them? So when somebody says, yeah, I'm from, Minnesota, they're like, oh my God, like what made you decide to come to California? Like, are you crazy? Like, or how did you enjoy the winters there? Because I heard they're really bad, or blah, 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 blah. There's lots of stuff if you have a curious mind. And so those are, I mean, just that alone will enable them to be, again, an active listener, but to be able to ask really good questions, which connects them with somebody else. I mean, they always say that everybody's favorite word is their own name. Why? Because that has to do with them. And so when we are doing that, not saying their name again, but you're curious about them, man, does that connect people. And then they love you. And they're like, oh my God, Lay is the greatest person ever, and we know that that's not true, but
Thanks for that.
you're
Telling it like it
welcome.
is. The other thing that
You're my
people like
favorite.
that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. People like that, oftentimes you mentioned they're really smart people and they can be really good attorneys and and I don't know if this is, all of you attorney entrepreneurs that are listening, I guarantee you it's not, but there's a certain subsection of you that are people who are really, really good at what they do. And like they are fantastic at a small, specialized, deep niche. Like they swim in that, they do it all day long, they love it. Like that's just their passion and they're super good at it. Um,
Yeah.
Somebody like that may be what I would consider a thought leader
Mm-hmm.
because they have some really unique technical things that they know and they talk about that their peers may not. And that puts them in a position, even if, networking isn't their thing or building relationships through networking isn't their thing, now they have a lot to offer. And that is
Mm-hmm.
super cool when you have stuff that you can offer for business development, whether it's through writing or through LinkedIn, which I know you spend a lot of time working with attorneys on, or through speaking, establishing your thought leadership and using your thought leadership to build a book of business is really, really fun because at that point, really you're just teaching and you're talking about stuff that you
Mm-hmm.
already geek out on.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have tell me about a time when you've seen that in action?
Oh God. Yeah. It's when you can write something like on LinkedIn, or you can do a video on LinkedIn, and you can allow your target market to understand something that is extremely complex, and you can whittle it down to where it's a very simple concept. People love that. because that's genius, right? Albert Einstein had said, and I think it was him that said, genius is when you can take something so complex and explain it to a fifth grader so that they understand it. And I think at the time he was talking about quantum physics, but understanding it so well that you make it simple, because when people get it, they go, what else do they know? The attorney should probably knows more and more. And what that does for me as a potential client or referral source is it gives me comfort knowing they know their stuff inside and out, because I kind of get it. I know that there's a whole lot more that's out there that I don't know, but I kind of get that. And they make me feel comfortable about that. And so they go, yeah, I would totally hire this person because they make it so easy to understand such a complex situation. And I think that that's always a fun thing to push our clients to do, is to say, okay, take this, now make it more simple. Just make it more simple. And they go, but it's not. I'm like, I know it's not, but make it more simple, because once you do, your target market is going to love it. And then when you can do that again and again and again, people see them as, like you had said, thought leaders. The credibility goes through the roof, and they geek out on it. Like if you were to write stuff about Star Wars, you could do it all day long, every day. Like,
Good.
I get paid for this? What? Like, that'd be fantastic, though. I mean, seriously, it really would. And that's where they need to be putting their efforts into, as opposed to, God, I hate this. Oh my God, I gotta hate this. And again, that goes back to, there's not one size fits all when it comes to business development and marketing. And that's a good thing, because we can find those things that we're passionate about that doesn't feel like it's a ton of work and it's painful to do.
Yeah. So we've identified, I think, at least a couple of styles already. One is the networkers, right? Whether you are extroverted or introverted, being strategic, being an active listener, building genuine relationships, and being curious. The other one is the thought leader. Talk about one that you'll appreciate, because this is a lot like you, which is someone who is just builds relationships really well with other people, and it comes to them kind of naturally. Like
Mm.
these are people who we just kind of see, and they always seem to be able to connect people. People like them. People are drawn to them. Those people have a tendency, to build relationships really well, and can build referral relationships really quickly
Yeah.
if they do the right things. So, how can someone recognize that that might be them? And then what are some of the things they can do to harness that ability?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things about that is that you can tell that they care about other people and that they're always looking for other people's best interest. And so what they're doing is they are master connectors, or as we like to say, COI, center of influence, that people come to them all of the time saying, hey, Alay, do you know a good estate planning attorney? Hey, Alay, do you know? Because two things, they know you're connected and they know you care, because when people get that, they like trust you. Like, I always trust you. I'm like, hey, do you know a good? And you're like, yeah. You give me one name and I'm off and running to the races, because I trust you completely, because I also know you are a center of influence. And so when they're doing it intentionally and they're doing it strategically and they've got a process and plan to do that, it just enables them to get more momentum and get better success. It is, like what was his name? Grant, the 10Xer,
Oh, Grant
where
Cardone?
Grant Cardone, when you do something and you do it full force and you'll get 10x, there is definitely some truth into that, especially if you are that type of individual, that it really suits your soul, that when you help somebody out, you're like, ooh, I feel good about myself. I feel fantastic. Those people need to be building deep, deep, deep relationships. But I also think that on the kind of the flip side is there is this I don't know, some attorneys want a quick fix. They're like, I just want this, and they are looking for the quick fix. For instance, what is the least amount of work that I have to do when it comes to business development and marketing? so that I can get more clients. Now, that in and of itself is not bad, but if you are charging $1,500 an hour for your services, let me tell you, SEO is not going to help you. I'm not meaning to offend anybody who does web development or SEOs that are out there, but I'm not going to be hiring somebody for $1,500 an hour that I found online that I don't know. That comes from a referral from somebody else or a relationship that is like, okay, I trust you implicitly because if I'm going to pay $1,500, I know for a fact I'm going to get a really good result. That also helps people understand going, oh yeah, but I do have to build deep relationship. You don't need a lot of them, but you do need to build deep relationships with certain people.
Love that. And we are actually going to continue this conversation on our next podcast. I thought about doing a cliffhanger thing like next week. We're going to talk about the number one secret you need. Well, we're not going to do that, but we are going to continue this chat. For those of you listening, it'll be next week. For Gary and I, it'll be in about 30 seconds here. So, Gary, we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you, so connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm, and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay Yajnik. Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom. You can embrace happiness. You can build your perfect practice.